Why can't the top Democrats explain the simple support from black voters? Is it denial or something deeper? Let's dive into what they're missing and why. I'm Tim Black. Welcome to my Black Table. If you want the inside track of what's going on with Cornel West's run for the presidency, lock in now. Subscribe to this channel as I track it all and come along for the ride. So we're going to take a look at Jim Clyburn, who's the co-chair of Joe Biden's re-election campaign. He sits down with Meet the Press, and he answers some questions about Joe Biden. He didn't do such a great job. We're going to look at that, and we're also going to look at what he says about Kamala Harris and her polling. And then we're going to take a look at what Dr. West says is the main problems we're having with the Democratic Party and why. And by the time we're done with that, I think you're going to have a clear understanding of what's going on with the Democrats and why I think they're in denial. Okay, let's start with that Jim Clyburn first clip.
Our democracy is still at stake.
This, as our new poll shows, the president's approval among black voters is down 17 points since the first year of his presidency. Mr. Biden is also down by double digits among Latinos, voters without a college degree, and independents. And as we mentioned, 59% of Democratic primary voters tell us they want to see a challenger to President Biden. I'm joined now by a co-chair of the president's 2024 campaign, Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. He is, of course, also assistant Democratic leader in the House. Congressman Clyburn, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Let's delve into some of these numbers. Our poll shows that President Biden is in a dead heat with former President Trump, who has been indicted 4 times. Why is that?
Well, I think the American people are focused more on style than substance, and that is the way it is in politics. Joe Biden is a man full of substance. The style is something you get from another candidate, you won't get it from him. He believes in democracy, he believes in the American dream, and he does what he possibly can to help people fulfill that dream and maintain this democracy. And that is not the kind of stuff that you poll very well.
Well, Congressman, our poll shows that the vast majority of Democrats want to see a challenger to President Biden. Is he the strongest candidate for 2024?
I think he is the strongest candidate, and I believe very strongly that the American people believe that as well. When you are out this far, I remember back, was it 2010 and 2012? We got shellacked in 2010, and in 2012, all the polls I saw said Obama had no chance of getting reelected. The Democrats wanted an alternative to Obama. What happened in 2012 is now history. He won very comfortably. And I think the same thing will happen here.
Well, as you know, in a close election, every single vote counts. And
Absolutely.
As we laid out, his support among some of his core groups, African Americans, Latinos, young voters, has dropped. How do you make sure they don't stay at home, Congressman?
They will not stay at home. We understand what's at stake here. The problem with me is I spend too much time studying history, and I see what's going on here. I know where the playbook came from that resulted in January 6th. It came from the 1876 elections, almost exactly. Named the places at the same stage, alternative electors. They had a scheme put together with a playbook that came out of that election. Now that people are beginning to focus on that, and let me say something else. I was in that hall last night. I've been around here all week with African Americans coming in from all over the country. If you think that he's lost 17% of support among African Americans, you just got another thing coming. He is not in any trouble with African Americans in this country. I guarantee you that.
This has to be one of the worst interviews I've ever seen. It's so embarrassing. Jim Clyburn sat there and listened to substantive data that said, hey, your boy Joe Biden's dropping like a brick in the polls. He's stinking up the place. And his only response was, forget them numbers. What you doing looking at numbers for? I'm Jim Clyburn. I'm the Apollo God. I know everything. I control time and space and Negroes. It makes no sense what he's talking about. Black people have cooled off to Joe Biden, if we were ever warm to begin with. Latinos have cooled to Joe Biden, and so have independents and young people. The only group that's left with Joe Biden is, there is no group left for him. The guy's stinking up the place. Taking a page out of the Parliament Funkadelic book. Joe Biden's numbers are so low, you can't get under them. And his disapproval ratings are so high, you can't get over them. This looks horrible. No one would do a good job of explaining this because you would have to admit that Joe Biden just ain't got it. When everybody don't like you, there's a reason. And that would mean that Jim Clyburn would have to be honest. And that's something he cannot do by any means necessary. He has to obfuscate, bluster, and then at the end say, hey, look, lady, give me a break. I'm me, and just trust me. He's not as bad as people think. So now we're going to move on to Jim Clyburn trying to defend Kamala Harris with her horrible numbers as well.
All right, well, let's turn to Vice President Harris. Do you see her as the future of the Democratic Party?
I see her as a part of that future, absolutely.
Is she the future, though? Is she the future of the Democratic Party?
Oh, she could very well be. I think she is running a very good campaign. Her speech last night was great, and I look to her as a successor to this president. But I also know the history of that as well. It's not a given. You don't automatically move up. She'll have to compete going forward with whoever may have dreams and aspirations, and I think she will acquit herself well.
Well, I know that you're saying you don't look at the polls too much, but our poll does show her favorability is actually lower than President Biden and even than former President Trump. Why do you think she's not resonating more with voters? What do you think the issue is?
Because when you compare the first woman of color and first woman to be vice president of the United States, and compare that to all of the history before, you will get that. I think that during this campaign, she will demonstrate, as she did in that hall last night, that she knows exactly what she's doing. She has the capacity and the capability to be president of the United States if called upon to do so.
The future of the Democratic Party. The future of the Democratic Party. Clyburn should have got struck by lightning right there in the studio. Boom! I don't know if Clyburn's listening to what the woman is saying or he's hearing music in his head, but her numbers are lower than Biden's and Trump's, and you're saying she's the future of the Democratic Party. Man, guy lies like a rug. The only thing impressive about this interview is Jim Clyburn's commitment to not telling the truth. Kamala Harris' approval numbers are right up there with O.J. Simpson. Now, don't get me wrong, I will never discount the amount of racism that someone faces, but her numbers were low before she became vice president, so they were already low. They just got lower. But now we get to the good part. This is the part where Dr. Cornel West explains this so it makes sense.
I can't stand self-righteousness. Everybody now, CNN, MSNBC, let me tell you my Trump story of how evil he is. I already know. Why don't you engage in a critique of your own neoliberal sensibility? Yes, Trump is dangerous. Oh, no doubt about that. But that's not the point in the end. The question is, who are you? What are you going to do? Who are you organizing, mobilizing? What kind of impact will you have if you're going to engage in stopping him? That's a wonderful thing. For me, I'm just being humble about my own view. But at the same time, what kind of vision will you have, or will you get locked into a similar kind of silo that he seems to have been locked to, that kind of adolescent, narcissistic, xenophobic cycle that he's been in for the last number of decades?
So Joe Biden will not be able to skate by using the tactic that he used to get elected, which was Trump evil, Trump bad, Trump is a catastrophe, so therefore vote for me because I'm the only way out. That's not working this time because people are looking at their money, their pocketbooks, their gas, their day-to-day bills, the inflation, and they're saying,
this is unacceptable. What the hell is this?
Bottom line is that America's not impressed with the current occupants of the White House, nor with the vice president. And yes, on corporate media, and yes, on some independent media, you will hear these bold claims that Joe Biden has done so much. But at the end of the day, it's about what the voters think. And the voters see what Joe Biden has done over the last couple of years is lousy, lackluster, and lazy. Half measures that aren't enough. He's got limp biscuit politics that aren't adding up. There's no rise to the donuts. They wanted biscuits with air in them to rise, and he's got flapjacks. When it's all said and done, when it's all over, it's going to come down to the fact that Joe Biden cannot bring in new voters, and that's going to be his Achilles heel. The independents don't want him. The blacks, the Latinos, the young people don't want him. It's a crash course in what's not working for the Democratic Party, and they're going backwards. So Cornel West speaks here about the climate of what's important to the voters out there and how Joe Biden's not rising to that occasion.
For the vast number of voters who would vote for a Green Party and myself either would not vote at all or would never, ever, ever vote for Biden or Trump. And that's very important to keep in mind because there's this narrative, I think it's a false narrative, thinking that somehow they're choosing between Biden and myself. No, not really. They've given up on Biden. What is it now? 48% of our precious fellow citizens do not vote at all, my dear sister. That's not a good sign in a democracy that's already in decay. That's not a good symptom of a democracy already experiencing a kind of decadence. We've got to bring new people in, and neither party is really interested in speaking to that 48% that has given up on American democracy.
So yes, support from black voters has slipped, and it's going to continue to slip some more because I don't see how Joe Biden shores things up between now and November. What's he going to do to radically change the situation? What is he going to do to change the climate, the temperature that's happening right now in Black America? I don't see a way for him to turn that around. I mean, he has a pen. People forget he has an executive pen that he can use right now. And if he was so concerned with Dr. Cornel West taking votes from him, he would do something for black folks that would manifest in their lives so that black folks could feel, hey, we don't need a challenger. Hey, we don't need to defect to the Green Party. No, we don't need to move over towards Trump to get rid of the Democrats. So that's really what's happening now, and that's what they want. They're in denial to the reality that people have stopped buying the lies that they've been telling for so long. That people are waking up to the fact that things are bad for black folks in America. We're not getting treated the respect that we deserve. We don't have an anti-hate bill. We are sitting here with no reparations. No one's cutting a check. We're not getting the opportunities. You say we are looking for set-asides when we're the only group of people that have been damaged to the extent that we've been damaged in this country, and there has been no initiatives that focus solely on us. But you say affirmative action, which helps mostly white women first. And most white women are married to white men, so they get a double dip of what's good in America. So, like, Black America is waking up to this, and they have been waking up to it, but the media has been able to keep that silent, to keep the lid on the pan, so to speak. But now the lid just fell off the pan. It's on the floor over there sitting somewhere and it's bubbling up. The pot's bubbling on the stove, and people can smell it, and they're walking by, and they're all smelling it. And you know what it smells like? It smells like a new day. And that's what we got. And you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's a wrap for this. So, and to me, it's all upside because either the Democratic Party gets on board right now and they focus more on the voters than their donors, right? Or they lose. And we have Dr. Cornel West as president. Because Dr. Cornel West will go talk to people in Trump town.
Right, and that goes back to 2016 with Bernie. Like, I wouldn't have probably voted, but then he brought me into the political sphere.
Yeah, he did.
I still have Marine friends, and they told me they would have voted for Bernie, but instead they voted for Trump.
Oh, absolutely.
So I was like, wait, that's crazy, right? Like, as in, like, Hillary didn't own those votes to begin with. They weren't even going to vote for her. They were going to vote for Bernie.
That's exactly right.
And then,
but that's one of the reasons why I'm going straight into Trump country. I just did a show with my brothers and sisters in Appalachia. Right. And I'm going there. Why? There's poor and working people there.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, this two-party system is broke. All right, my name is Tim Black. You've been listening to Tim Black's Black Table. If you find this content interesting and you're like, wow, I like the way this guy comes off. He doesn't seem like he's caping for the Democrats, and he's not pushing me to go Trump either. I like this guy. Well, do you know what you do? You subscribe. Become a member of the Tim Black Show. Go to Join Tim Black. Sign up. Give it a try. Cancel it anytime. But be a part of it. Why? Because don't you let nobody take your cornbread. And, my people, it's a new day. You heard?